Sleepy town settling for the night, where the Owens women live their lives. And it's about time that the back porch light comes on at that house down the street, at that house on Magnolia Street.
Yeah.
This is intro episode 2, part second half.
Yeah. So last you guys joined us on our second ever, where we discussed the differences between the book and the movie, and it got a little long. So I think we're going to continue on from last week and give you guys more juicy details on all of the differences you may have missed between the book and the movie.
Yeah, I'm excited. I missed ya. I've been doing good.
I know.
Yeah,
well,
you doing?
we're acting like we don't talk every single day.
Maybe I'm talking to the listeners.
I know, we miss you guys. We don't miss each other. We talk way too much to each other.
Yeah. I think we're gonna just dive right in because you guys have been very patient, and we're gonna just pick up right where we left off. And where, Justina, you want to remind us where we left off and where we're going?
Yeah. So last week we left off at the character descriptions, and this week we're gonna pick right up into more details, and we're gonna start with the Almas Veritas true love spell, because that does not exist in the books.
Awesome. All right, here we go. Chronologically, we're going to just go right into the true love spell. Sally's Almas Veritas spell. In the book, there's nothing like that. There's no spell.
In the movie, we see Sally as a child do this true love spell where she has her little journal and she's pressing little rose petals into it, and she writes her little Almas Veritas love spell, how he has one green eye, one blue, his favorite shape will be a star, he'll be marvelously kind, he can ride a pony backwards, all of that stuff. None of that exists in the book, and I'm so sad about it.
I know, he just shows up on his own.
Yeah, no, but it's so cute. I like how they kind of tied in her magic as a child into the movie, you know?
Yes. Yep.
So as a child, she does that whole love spell, which actually ends up bringing Gary to her later on down the line. And I guess that leads to the next bit, which is Gary and Sally's first encounter.
Yeah. In the book, he shows up in the middle of her trying to make dinner. She's making tomato sauce, pasta on the stove, and he rudely knocks on the door. Like, I don't like when people interrupt me cooking. Get out of my kitchen. I don't have time to wash my hands and come back to this. Go ahead.
Yeah. And we should also mention that when he arrives at her house, it's at her home, her residence in New York, not at the Magnolia Street residence with the aunt. And then in the movie, he just strolls up on her while she's in the garden on Magnolia Street, cutting down roses that grew overnight from Jimmy's spirit.
And there is a scene, this is striking to me, that he's a very sensitive man. And I wonder if being raised by his grandfather had anything to do with it, but he ends up crying at her kitchen table. I don't remember what triggers it, but he ends up crying at her table, and I would be like, all right, you gotta go.
You know what it said? It said something about him like seeing the sight of a beautiful dark-haired woman or something of the sort. Like, I think that's what made him cry. I think I remember reading that's what makes him cry. He just thinks he thinks she's so beautiful, and I just thought that was so sweet.
Oh, I'm gonna pop me a top. There you go.
Are you drinking more demon water?
I have a hazy little thing from Sierra Nevada.
Oh, you have a nice little beer there. Yeah, and in the movie there is no crying at all on Gary's part, right?
But he is kind. He gives them the time of day. He knows they're like lying. Like, okay, but I still need to do my job. But God, we should go all into like, oh, you are kissing a suspect. Oh, what's going on, Gary? So, but all right. Let's talk about Jimmy's ring, because as before, when we were talking about his description, it is both a big deal in both the book and
very
movie.
much. Yeah.
In the book, it is described as it's a big chunk of silver with 3 panels. A saguaro cactus is etched into one side panel, a coiled rattlesnake on the other, and in the center, there is a cowboy on horseback. I think there's a line in there somewhere that like you would not want to be hit by that.
Right. Yeah.
That would cut you right open.
Oh yeah. In the movie, it doesn't really talk about him hitting people with it, but it does talk about him branding people with it,
Hmm.
which I failed to put in my notes, but I just thought about that now. And I thought that
Hmm.
was an interesting tidbit. And in the movie, I just thought it was interesting how the writers were like, we don't have time for all of this detail on that ring. We're just going to make it a
Hmm.
skull head with a snake. And that's
Yep,
what it,
coming out of the eyeball,
and
which is
that's
like, I
what
think
it
it's for
was.
sale somewhere. I thought
Yeah,
they're
there's
like
some
you can buy
replicas
it.
on like
Hmm.
yeah, I think there's some replicas floating around on Etsy. The whole theme and the whole plot of the toad throwing up the ring is prominent in both the book and the movie.
It is. Yeah, toads show up a lot in the book and the movie, but in this case, in the book, Kylie, the daughter, is making a cake in the kitchen and she notices a frog on the windowsill and the toad throws, I think it's a toad. Is it or is it a frog? We're going to say it's a toad. Throws up the ring while she's baking a cake for her
Some kind of
BFF Gideon.
amphibian.
Yeah, we got to double check that because I know there's differences and there's going to be zoologists out there coming at us. No,
Yeah.
that's a toad.
And in the movie, it's Gary and Sally that see the toad throw up Jimmy's ring in the garden when Gary goes over for pancakes and to question the girls about Jimmy's disappearance.
Yes, it's very incriminating. He's like,
Oh
"Well, then
yeah.
how the fuck this get here then?
What
You
was in
girls,
that
you better
syrup?
get yourselves a damn good lawyer. Don't even think about leaving town."
Don't even think about leaving town. Oh my
Ooh,
god.
all
Oh
right.
yeah, they are in some deep water there.
Which then brings us to Jimmy's death next. And in the
Yeah.
book, Jimmy dies of belladonna. They think it builds up in his bloodstream over time. Jillian thinks she's the one who kills him. Jimmy dies in their car at a rest stop while looking for cigarettes in the glove box or the glove compartment while they're on a road trip. Jillian says she had been coming to visit Sally at that time when it happened. Jimmy is singing Dwight Yoakam, whom I love. I love Dwight Yoakam. Moments before he dies, and I think the song is "Eyes of a Clown" or something like that.
The Dwight Yoakam song.
Yeah, something about a clown.
We'll have to check that out.
Yeah, there's no resurrection spell. They bury him as soon as they can drag his ass out of the car, basically. So when Jillian shows up, she's like, "Yo, you want to see him?" And Sally's like, "No, not really, but yeah."
Yeah,
And
yeah.
Sally's like, "Oh shit, he is handsome, but what are we
Yeah.
gonna do with this dead body?" So they bury him right away. I don't know if the lilacs were already growing, but where they bury him, lilacs start they're out of control. Like people come from all over to see these massive
Yeah.
lilacs in Sally's New York yard. And there's no mention of tequila anywhere.
Yeah, I even magnified the glass. I magnified glass the shit out of the book on my Kindle reader, and I was like, "How is there no tequila anywhere in
What
this
did
book?"
you say earlier? It's loud.
What'd I say?
It's loud in my mouth.
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 All right. Take
So
us to the movie,
I
please.
will take you to the scene. So Jimmy's death in the movie, he dies of a belladonna overdose, but it's pretty much instantly because Sally puts a little too much in the tequila. She
Mm.
puts all the belladonna in the tequila bottle while driving him and Jillian after going to get her to bring her home after one of his violently abusive outbursts. And he's in the back seat, kind of threatening to brand Jilly, and Sally's kind of freaking out. So they kind of do their little ESP sisterly kind of like mind
Mhm.
reading thing. And Jilly's like, "Get the belladonna, it's in my bag." But then Sally
Uh-huh.
kind of overdoes it a little bit. She says one of my favorite lines later on, which is, "I don't know, Jillian, I wasn't using a measuring cup."
He was trying to
She was
kill
trying to kill you.
you. Have
What?
you seen you can get a little vinyl you can put on your rear view mirror that says the belladonna is in my bag?
Oh, I love it.
Super cute.
I want
Yeah.
one. Okay.
Yeah.
So instead of Dwight Yoakam, as he listens to in the book, he actually in the movie he's singing to Elvis Presley, "You Were Always on My Mind," moments before he dies. And in the movie, they attempt to resurrect Jimmy with a spell from the aunt's grimoire. And then when he tries to choke Jillian again, Sally kills him again by hitting him over the head with a frying pan. And then they bury him. So in the movie, he dies twice. In
Mhm.
the book, he only dies once, and they bury him right away, no resurrection spell. Then he's buried under the arbor in the garden on the Magnolia Street property in Massachusetts. And then roses grow instead of lilacs. And in the movie, tequila is Jimmy's kryptonite and is a huge plot point in the storyline. And it was also the thing that saves the day at the end of the movie. So
Yes.
there's a lot about Jimmy that differs between the book and the movie.
Yeah. I'm glad they gave him a bit more. Like I know in the books
Yeah.
they do kind of say like they went shooting prairie dogs at one point, but here he's more prominent and I appreciate that cuz he's a good bad guy. Do you think that he wakes up a second time because of the spell or do you think it was the belladonna like ebbing and flowing in
Oh,
his
you know what?
system?
I thought of, but that's a good point.
Because I don't know which side of the fence I'm on. I always thought the spell didn't work. I always thought like the spell part was like when he kind of comes back, his spirit keeps coming back through the roses and stuff like that. But I always thought it was
Yeah.
like the belladonna kind of like messing with his system.
When he comes back before they bop him with a frying pan.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can vibe with that
Mm-hmm.
theory. I
Mm-hmm.
like that whole
Okay.
theory. And also in the book, I do want to mention that they describe his vileness a lot more in the book. Like in the
Yeah.
movie, they do paint him as that this like pretty boy, like suave guy, and like we only see a little bit of his abusive behavior. But in the book, they really describe his vileness.
Yeah.
And there's even one point where Jillian mentions that they were house sitting for one of their somebody and
Mm-hmm.
he put their cat in the freezer or the refrigerator.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's horrible. And
Because it was annoying him or something.
yeah, oh, it peed on the floor. That's what happened. It peed on the
Oh.
floor. So he put it in the fridge and Jillian had to take it out while he was sleeping at night so the poor thing didn't freeze to death. And I was
Yeah.
just like, oh my god, that is
And it's
horrible.
like it had ice crystals on its
Yeah.
whiskers and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
my heart.
I think I saw the movie first and then I realized it was a book. So I think I got the book. If so I'm in 6th grade. I get the book and it is probably a little too mature for a 6th grader in my opinion.
Yeah.
Like one of the first lines and this like took me aback. So like reading Jimmy's abuse, I was like, "Whoa." Like okay,
Yeah.
yeah, there's bad dudes out there. But like one of the first lines Jillian says to Sally in the book is like, "Fuck them." And I think that was the first time I ever read a swear word in a book. And
Yeah.
I remember my mom taking me to, I don't know if it was Barnes. No, it wasn't Barnes, Borders books.
Uh-huh.
And I got the book and she didn't know like,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's the first time I remember reading like something above my reading
Yeah.
level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
I do remember reading the book for the first time and seeing like the F-bomb and being like, whoa. And I read the book after I saw it because I also didn't know it was a
mhm.
book until after I saw the movie. And I remember reading that and I was like, wow, the movie is not this not vulgar. I mean, the book it has its moments, but I wouldn't consider it vulgar by any means.
It's
But
realistic. Yeah.
it is
Like
definitely
with
a
its
little
language.
more realistic with the language. So that did kind of take me aback when I first read it as a teenager, a late teenager. So
Yeah.
but yeah, so I guess the next thing, let's move on to the contents of Sally's letter to Jillian.
Yeah. It's basically in the book, she is urging Jillian to leave Jimmy. I should have copied and pasted like what it said. Did it elaborate on what it
I
said?
think it just said just you have to leave him, or it was very short and to the point. It didn't really go into like the whole entire letter. Like she actually writes the letter, and we see her write the entire letter in the movie. It was just very short and to the point, and said that the letter was basically like you have to leave him, and that's all it really said about it.
So, do you think that you could, for the movie contrast, do us a bit of a favor and read? Do you think you could do it from your mind, like what her letter says to Jillian?
So sometimes I feel like there's a hole inside of me, an emptiness that at times seems to burn. I think if you lifted my heart to your ear, you could probably hear the ocean. The moon tonight, there's a circle around it, sign of trouble, not far behind. I have this dream of being whole, of not going to sleep each night, wanting, but still sometimes when the wind is warm or the crickets sing. By the way, I love when she says crickets, when the crickets sing.
Hmm.
I dream of a love that even time will lie down and be still for. I just want someone to love me. I want to be seen. I don't know. Maybe I had my happiness. I don't want to believe it, but there is no man, Jilly. Only that moon.
Hell yeah, good job. So ever
That's a wrap.
since the book and the movie, like anytime I see, and I'm like 6th grade, like there's a ring around the moon, we got to be careful. Ever since then, that has always been my
Where's my
superstition.
tiger's eye? Give me
Yeah,
my
and like if a
tiger's eye.
broom falls, company's coming. That's how
Yeah.
superstitions start. And so it sounds like at this point in the movie, like Sally's back on the market. She's
Yeah.
ready to fall in love again.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. I never kind of thought about that. So I wonder how long between how long it was for her. We have a section of when she's mourning for Michael, but It really doesn't say how long it was in the movie.
I'm going to say a few years, maybe no more than that, because when we see Michael in the beginning of the movie, we still see the girls are very little. And then by the time she moves in with the aunts, the girls are a little older. They're like approaching maybe like, I don't know, I want to say maybe 6
8.
and 8.
Well, but they're dancing
9.
around the living room together. They're
They're older
Evan
than.
Rachel Wood, and yeah, I
Okay.
think they're in their older stage. Who knows?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe a year or two, if that. I wouldn't say
If
any more
anybody
than
has
that.
a theory, please
Yeah.
tell us. I'd love to know.
Yeah.
So the next thing we have is the through line of them being outcasts. In the book, we get more detail about some cruel jokes that were being played on the sisters. And the one passage says, someone put an open ant farm in her locker when Sally was in 4th grade, so that for weeks she found squashed ants between the pages of her books. In 5th grade, a gang of boys left a dead mouse in her desk. One of the cruelest children had glued a name tag to the mouse's back. SALI had been scrawled in crude letters.
So in the movie, the cruelty and the whole outcast theme was kind of shown by the town's children throwing stones and taunting the girls, saying witch, you're a bitch, and the girls asking, why do they hate us so much? The horse, which we know his name is Samson. We see that scene when the aunts are coming out of the post office and the townspeople are visibly avoiding them as they're trying to walk through town. And they kind of just take it so lightheartedly. They're like, oh, Samson. Like, it's
That's
just
the
like,
just knock it off.
yeah, they're just paying no mind to all these idiots that are like causing all of this
They're so used to it. It seems
hysteria
like.
for no reason.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
like the mom that is walking at them with the small child, like covers the child's eyes. She's like, don't look
Yeah.
at them.
Yeah.
My
Very
God.
sad. Yeah. I guess that brings us to the aunts and their kind of outlook on the whole thing, right?
Yes, in the movie there's a very famous line which I dearly dearly love, but it's a little bit different in the books. So from the books it says goodness, in their opinion, was not a virtue but merely spinelessness and fear disguised as humility.
And in the movie, their quote is, being normal is not necessarily a virtue. It rather denotes a lack of courage.
I just want to tattoo that on my ass.
Right?
I love
Yeah.
that. I love it. So the next thing we want to talk about is one of the big, kind of like the most ritualized spell we see in the movie, and that involves the heart of a dove. So this heart of a dove line is both in the book and the movie. In the book we are introduced to a character known at the beginning of the book as the drugstore girl. And she is a client of the aunts. She comes to the aunt's back door. The porch light is on. We later learn her name, but for right now, she's the drugstore girl. And it says, who arrived one dark evening, wasn't pretty, but she was known for her kindness and sweet disposition. And she is described as being eaten alive by love.
All right. So in the movie, there's a random client that comes to the door. She also does not have a name, and she's not even seen for the rest of the movie, I believe, right?
She's in the circle, the coven circle at the end. She comes with
Okay.
her broom. Yeah.
Okay. So she says to the aunts, I want him to want me so much that he can't stand it. And she has a picture of him that she carries with her. So clearly he's married. He's a married man.
Yeah, he's fine. Like he's okay looking. Like he's
Yeah,
fine.
he
No, I
looks
wonder what that backstory is. And then
he
Jetty
looks like
says,
rough around the
"Be
edges.
careful. Be careful what you wish for, because like you have to be like with everything. Be careful how you phrase things. You got to be specific when it comes to universe, and I'm assuming very specific when it comes to the aunts. So in that regard, we have another passage from the book. The passage of the good book says, they gave her the heart of a dove set on one of their best saucers, and she was supposed to repeat, my lover's heart will feel this pin, and his devotion I will win. There will be no way for him to rest nor sleep until he comes to me to speak. Only when he loves me best will he find peace, and with peace, rest. This is a whole big to-do. After this spell happens, this shop girl gets what she wants, and unfortunately have you ever seen Dream Master? It's not called Dream Master or something. And when you wish for something, it kind of gets twisted and it's the like worst way. So the spell turns into this man leaving his wife and marrying the shopkeeper, or excuse me, the drugstore girl. And he won't leave her alone. It's almost too much. He
becomes
so
obsessed,
infatuated.
right?
He is obsessed with her. He won't let her go to the bathroom on her own. She says he wants to fuck me day and night. Like, she goes back to the aunt's house to either get her money back or get some kind of reversal curse. But the
Yeah.
aunts are watching from inside the house. They notice the drugstore girl coming up the lane. Sally and Jillian are in the garden. So unfortunately, this woman takes out her anger on the girls and ends up slapping Sally. So the aunts see this, and from inside the house, they enchant this woman so she can never speak again. So even if she wanted to tell her husband to go away, she wouldn't be able to.
Yeah, and in the movie, well, what you said in the book, they they gave her the heart of the dove and she set it on a saucer, and that's pretty much the extent. Did she stick it? I guess she stuck it with the pin in the book too, right?
Yes.
Yes. So she does the same thing in the movie, and that's when Sally kind of shields her eyes and she says, "I don't ever want to fall in love. I never want to fall in love." And then Jilly goes, "I can't wait to fall in love." So we kind of see from like the get go, I guess, the self-destructive behavior or the path that Jilly's already. This woman is setting an example for Jilly, I think, at that young age, and she sees, what this woman wants, and that she's gonna get it with, I guess, the magic that.
Yeah, yeah. I think she's seeing, like, if you want it bad enough, there's always a way to get it. Like, whether
Right.
you throw money at it, whether you use your charm to get it, whether you con your way there. And then she ends up with Jimmy, who gets exactly what he wants all the time through fear, and bullying and all that stuff. So I see it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that same actress was credited, and we see her at the just for like a split second.
Okay.
When all the women go down to pick up their brooms, she's the only one who stays standing because she already has her broom in her hand, which is weird
Okay.
because like the circle is already made with the brooms. I don't know what happened there.
I'm gonna have to watch that scene back. I don't remember seeing her at the end, but I'm gonna look out for her.
So if anybody wants to do like a viewing party later down the line, we are gonna
Yeah.
try to make that happen. That'll be really fun. All right, let us talk about the Death Watch beetle in the book. Oh, so this is kind of going to go over how Sally and Michael get together. But Sally meets Michael outside of a hardware store that he works at.
And in the movie, the aunts cast a spell on Sally and Michael, and they see him while they're walking through town when they leave the post office, and Sally's kind of sulking about missing Jillian and not feeling like she fits in. And then, her and Michael kind of catch each other's eye, and the aunts kind of take note of that, and they kind of take that and run with it. And all they want to do is see Sally happy. So they decide to set the spell or cast a spell on Sally and Michael. So they meet in the street, basically. They meet on the street while he's selling produce and they're just walking through town.
Yeah, it's not just like a catch of the eye. He stops in the middle of the street.
Yeah,
what
he
he's
does
doing.
stop.
He sets his little dolly to park and she turns around and then she does her little trip
She
thing, which is
trips.
adorable.
Oh, it's so cute.
Yes. In the book, we actually learn a lot about the relationship between the aunts and Michael. They grow really fond of him. And the excerpt from that part of the book is when Michael moved in, the house itself began to change. Even the bats in the attic knew it and took to nesting by the garden shed. By the following June, roses had begun to grow along the porch railing, choking out the ragweed, instead of the other way around. In January, the draft in the parlor disappeared, and ice would not form on the bluestone path. The house stayed cheery and warm.
Yeah, and in the movie, Sally and Michael seem to have a loving, normal life that Sally always wanted, but we never really learn about his relationship with the aunts or anybody else in the family or in the town for that matter. We don't really know much about him other than, I guess, like he is a really loved townsperson because as he's walking through with, his crate of apples,
everybody's talking at him.
In that dreaded scene, he's like, he's making chit chat with the people in town, like, how's your wife? How's this person doing? So, he's a really loved guy. He's a really down to earth, very cool guy.
I always wanted that. Like, hey, how's it going? Like, who's it? What you got going on later? I kind of get that in my neighborhood every now and then. But so both the book and the movie, we have a black dog similarity with that. Again, the famous scene, I think, is a Nick Drake song called Black Eyed Dog, which is very interesting. So we then come to the fateful turn of Michael's demise. In the book, he is killed by drunk teen drivers as he steps off a curb. I think it says while they were celebrating their youth or something like that, which is bullshit. Go ahead.
And in the movie, he is killed by, well, first, he is faked out by a fucking Tour de France that's riding through this small town in this little fishing village in Massachusetts. What?
What is this race?
Why is there a race at like, first of all, this seems like it's going on at like 5 a.m. before the whole world is up. Why? Why is there a bike race this early in the morning? And it's not even like, bike races usually have people on the sidelines, like a parade kind of deal, watching. Like, this is so freaking random.
Mhm.
This race just rolls through town. And, he's kind of standing there, like scared for a moment, but then he kind of just like relaxes and he kind of just like zones out for a minute, just letting it pass, and then it passes. And we think he's okay. And then boom, he's hit by a truck and his apples fly everywhere.
And then boom.
And
Oh
then
my
his
gosh.
apples go everywhere.
I
Yeah.
don't know about you, but the first time I saw it, I was like, because I
Yeah.
saw the bicycles coming, and I was like, oh no, it's that kind of movie. Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
this is gonna be so gruesome. And then I was like, oh good. And then it was like,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh,
Yeah. And you know what? I always wonder what that truck driver's story was. Like
yeah.
what
He was
happened there?
right in the middle of the road. You were
Yeah.
not following those cyclists that close to not see a
Yeah.
man in the middle of
Yeah.
the road.
Like what? Everything about that just makes no sense to me. But anyway, Hollywood, it's a movie,
Ah,
so we'll move on.
all right. We have so poor Michael, R.I.P.
Yeah.
In the book, Sally mourns for him. She just goes into complete shutdown depression, like taken over by grief. She doesn't talk for a year. It mentions that her hair is like knotted and it's losing its color, and she doesn't eat. So at this time, the aunts are responsible for their daughters.
Yeah, and in the movie, Sally asks the aunts to bring Michael back. They refuse, saying he'll come back as something dark and unnatural. She goes through the grimoire. We see all those marvelous, gorgeous pages
Beautiful.
in that
Hmm.
grimoire. Their aunts just simply refuse to do it. So she's depressed. She's in bed all the time, under the covers. She's not brushing her teeth, as Jillian clearly throws her under the bus to us. So we know she's not brushing her teeth. She's really not even taking her kids to school. We see
Hmm.
Kylie come in during that one scene, like, "Hey, mom, like, we're going to
Time for us
school
to go to
today."
school.
Yeah, and she's just like not having any of it.
She said, I'm just so
So
tired, which is like a big, like that
depression
depression. You're
sign,
just so
yeah.
tired. All right. After this disaster, I'm assuming he's buried in Massachusetts. Sally takes her daughters and she moves to New York. She's in search of that normalcy, that normal life. She wants to get gone.
Yeah, and in the movie, she moves back with the aunts with her two girls, Kylie and Antonia, and this prompts Jillian to visit her during the night, and the aunts don't know it. Nobody knows that Jilly comes back just to see her for that one night, just to check in with her and kind of just make sure she's okay. As we talked about earlier, since their mother died, she just wants to make sure she's not going to go down that same path as their mom
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
leave her little girls.
Yeah. So then now at this point we're gonna start scooting. I think there's a bit of a time jump. So in our story, like in the movie, we see Sally like open her shop. We see quite a few other things happen, but we're gonna jump to the mention of the ring around the moon, which is in both the book and the movie. And here we go. The moon is acknowledged first when we have the scene of Sally helping Jillian bury the already dead Jimmy, and it's described as having a ring around it.
Yeah, and in the film, the moon is acknowledged when Sally is writing the letter to Jillian prior to getting Jilly's phone call and prior to Jimmy's death. It's almost an omen, and she
Mhm.
describes it as blood, not ring
Is
around the moon. Yeah.
we should look up because there's like a scientific that's like the humidity in the air, but we
Mm,
should look up what the deal is. But I still think I'm like I'm gonna watch myself a little closer tonight whenever
right.
I see it. Next we have the Belladonna incident, the OD of Belladonna. In the book, Jillian shows up with Jimmy already dead in the car. The
Yeah.
Belladonna has already been in his system. He out.
Yeah, and then in the movie, Sally attempts to rescue Jillian, and both are kidnapped. They kill Jimmy with the belladonna. Then they take Jimmy back to the aunt's house. So yeah, the aunts were not home with the kids because they were at the solstice celebration. So they take the opportunity to try out this resurrection spell. That doesn't work. It does work, but as the aunts promise, it's not going to be the same guy. It's going to be something dark and unnatural. So ultimately, they bop him over the head with a frying pan. He dies a second time. Through both of these instances, Jillian, her smoking habit is kind of, I guess,
Acknowledged.
yes, that's acknowledged. Correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we got Jimmy in the garden in both stories at the moment. I think we kind of mentioned before, we skimmed over that toads are a big symbol in this story. So toads are present. And we also see Jimmy's boots in the movie, but there is also a mention of the boots peeking out in the story.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
it,
And also, wait, can I just interject real quick and
of
mention
course,
that in the movie, okay, when we were doing research for this podcast, I went through this movie with a fine-tooth comb, and
you did. Oh my
I
God.
was looking at every single angle and every single detail, and I
Excuse
had
me.
never noticed this before. But in the scene when they're doing the resurrection spell, when they're finding the ingredients, they do a very quick pan to the grimoire, and there is a toad on the page. I had never noticed. I
Oh,
had never noticed that before, and I was like,
cool.
that's why there's toads around. This
That
dark
is his
energy.
animal.
Well,
Yeah,
it's
dude.
not just Jimmy, but I guess like the dark energy of whatever this spell brings back is present in the grimoire, and it has that in the page. So it's like
Dude,
that's why that's why there's toads around him. It's just that dark energy that spell I guess
manifests itself
manifests.
as.
Yeah.
Look
Yeah.
at you. Dude,
I
okay, I have
know.
to say, like, it's really cool being able to say, like, in doing research, this is my favorite thing in the world. And to be able to be like, I'm doing research and I get to tell everybody about it. It's so
Yeah.
fun. It's
Yeah.
so fun.
And I'm sure other people probably have noticed this before, but this is just my discovery. And I'm just like, oh my
Mhm.
God, I never noticed
Mhm.
that before. That makes so much sense now. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome, dude. And all right, in the books, we have lilacs that grow out of season as a representation of his power, I guess, his presence.
Yeah. So in the movie, it's roses that grow overnight.
Yes. Which brings us to the famous midnight margaritas. Oh, so we are going to do a margarita inspired session at one point. I really hope.
Yes.
In the book, we do have a margarita scene, and it is Jillian kind of trying to get Sally out of her funk. Jillian forces Sally outside for a bit of a sit. They have a sit in some lawn chairs in the yard with some margaritas. And I think there's a line of like the breeze or the humidity like slaps her in the face, like in a good way. But the aunts are not involved. There's no, there's no fun dancing around,
Yeah. And
unfortunately.
there's no midnight margarita spell in the book either. And believe it or not, even though they have a margarita in the book, there is still no mention of tequila, which blows my mind.
No,
But
yeah. Sorry.
But anyway, in the movie, they dance around the kitchen. The aunts make the midnight margaritas. It's a thing because when Jillian is trying to wake Sally up, they both scream midnight margaritas. Like they've done this before. This is not a first time deal. Like this is a thing. So when when they hear the midnight margaritas cooking up in the kitchen downstairs, it's the highlight of the whole movie. They dance around the kitchen, they scream
Harry
and
Nielsen,
cackle.
baby. Yeah, lime in the
Yeah,
coconut night.
they scream and cackle, they sit around the table, they get drunk together, they insult the shit out of each other, and it's the best part of the whole damn movie.
Yes. Yes, yes, yes.
It's kind of also I guess, the catalyst and the turning point when things start to get really dark, right?
Yeah. Yeah, because when watching the movie, when the aunts are like, someone left it on the porch, I thought that was just them being affected. I don't know. I knew there was a Jimmy connection, but I had read like he possessed them. And I'm like,
Oh.
he did? I don't know where I read this. Like the possession of, yeah, I don't know where I read this, but
I guess we'll talk about Gary Hallett looking for Jimmy.
let's do it.
Did we do that already? We did that already.
We kind of mentioned before that in the description what happened. So in the book, Jimmy is wanted for deaths of college students. He was selling drugs, but they were laced with some weed.
And then in the movie he was wanted for homicide and multiple young women. So he's basically a serial killer. Kind of in both the book and the movie, it's noted that Sally is incapable of lying to Gary. She can't lie to him.
Of course you can lie to him. Here's what we can do. I left. Oh my gosh. Have you noticed in that scene? So she says, I left him because he hit me and we haven't seen him since. And Sally's trying to like go through it in her mind. And as she's going down the stairs, she says, I left him because I hit him and we haven't seen him since. She like messes, I left him because I hit him.
Yeah, she's her like whole like I guess crisis mode is hysterical
Yes.
She's just like in a crisis. She's just horrible. But
Mhm.
it's like it's funny because it's kind of the like flip-flop the other way around when like they kill Jimmy for the first time.
Yes.
And then Nicole
Mhm.
Kidman's freaking out, and then Sally's like, "All right,
Mhm.
we got this," and she just did what she needed to do.
Dude, which is beautiful. Like they are that for each other in that time of need.
Yeah, and it's
You
like
know?
it's almost like Sally's comfort or Sally her crisis mode is using her magic and what she's good at. And Jillian's crisis mode is kind of using her lies and her con artist side of her to get what she wants. So it's kind of like it's interesting how that flip-flop
Yeah.
in both of
I
those
love it.
instances. So let's talk about Jimmy's spirit presence.
Yeah. In the book, we have his presence being noticed. I guess it's not even noticed right away, but little things start disappearing. So I think like Sally's silver picture frame, like a picture frame starts disappearing. Jillian's boots go missing, and then like a biggin was the car Jillian uses to get to work.
It
She
just
can't
disappeared.
like where'd the car go? So she ends up walking to work, and the car is at work,
That's
which is
crazy.
very strange.
Yeah. And in the movie, it's just basically Toads. That's basically it. Just Toads, right?
We could also put in like the tequila showing up on the
Oh,
porch.
yeah. The tequila showing up randomly. Is there anything else? The
Um,
rose is growing.
mm-hmm. Yeah,
And I don't know what else. Oh, and the toad burping up the ring.
yeah. So a lot more like natural, like
Yeah.
earthy
Yeah.
occurrences that he can control rather than manipulating like solid objects.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in the book, we have Kylie, who in the book is the younger daughter, who's the very tall brunette. Can see auras. She can sense him. She can see him in the garden.
Okay. And then in the movie, Kylie is the older daughter and she sees him from the window when Sally's like, "Can you please go get the mint?" And she's like, "Nah, while he's out there." And
Hmm.
she sees him there. It's not necessarily the aura, but she sees like his figure and his
Hmm.
spirit out there. And she's totally freaked out by that.
So the book, Jillian is not possessed at all. There's no possession.
Yeah, and in the movie, obviously, we see that whole thing go down.
Yeah. To kind of combat this, Sally goes out and to the dismay of a lot of like townsfolk who love the lilacs, she goes and cuts the lilacs down to stumps.
Yeah, and in the movie, she does the same thing, but she cuts down the roses, which Gary rolls up on her while she's doing so, and he's kind of like, "Isn't it a little early for roses?"
Yeah, really, but like mid project again. Okay, so I guess they
Yeah,
kept that in there of him kind of coming in at a not opportune time, where
right.
Sally's trying to project mode. And then for Jimmy's spirit, lastly, in the books, the aunts do end up coming to New York to help the girls get rid of Jimmy's spirit.
And then at the end of the movie, the coven comes together to lift the Owens curse and banish Jimmy's spirit. And you know, another weird thing that I think I saw this like in the IMDb kind of like the blooper section. The aunts or Sally and Julie, when the aunts have the tequila bottle during the margarita scene, they throw it in the sink and it breaks, right?
Hmm.
So at the end, when nothing is working to banish the spirit from Jimmy, and Sally's like, "I got it. I'll be right back." Where does she get that tequila bottle from?
Oh my gosh.
It broke.
Oh my gosh.
So is that his spirit bringing it back again? Like
That's
what?
so weird.
Where did it come
Girl,
from?
good on you. I've never noticed that.
Neither did I. I thought I read that in like the I think the blooper section in IMDb,
Hmm.
and I
Hmm.
read that and I was like, "Oh my god, that's right." But thinking now, if the aunts found it on the porch, because didn't they get rid of the tequila bottle before they buried him? Like who put that on the
I
porch?
don't know. Yeah, I think it would have been left in the car because
Right.
we see them drag him to the
So
house.
if they keep trying to get rid of this bottle and it keeps reappearing,
What the fuck?
then that's
Yep.
definitely him,
All
like
right,
fucking with
let's.
them.
Do you want to talk about Phone Tree Day?
Phone Tree
So
Day.
in the book, it's called A Snow Chain, which I had never heard of, even growing up in the 90s. And I know you too, like we're not part of a phone tree. We just tune into our local news to see if our
Yeah.
school district is closed.
Yeah, I don't think the PTA was ever in charge of telling us when school was going to close.
Mm-mm.
They usually run like fundraisers and stuff like that. They don't really
Mm-hmm.
have anything to do with school closures. So,
Yes, yes.
and then in the movie, Sally was last on something called the phone tree.
I'm wondering if it's because in the overarching story, they're on an island, and maybe
Yeah,
it's like
doesn't
supposed to be
snow, maybe?
like
Oh, but it does
Well,
snow.
or
It's Massachusetts.
yeah, but having connection, like having connection with people might be easier by phone than it is to get the
Mm,
news.
okay.
Who knows? Who
Yeah.
knows?
Yeah. Who knows why that was changed over,
Yeah.
but that's a fun scene
Yeah.
regardless. Yeah.
Let's jump back to Jimmy really quick. We're going to talk about how they got rid of this some bitch and when they poured whatever was in the cauldron on his grave. So in the books, the aunts mix up lye and lime to pour over his grave, which I think they talk about in Fight Club. They talk about how soap is made
Yeah.
with lye and what that can do to a body. So
Hmm.
that would be in the book.
Okay. And yeah, in the movie, it's never stated what exactly is in the cauldron mixture that they pour onto Jimmy's grave. The only thing that we really see is, what is it, Aunt Frances kind of stirring it, and one of the phone tree members or coven members, they kind of like make a face, and she's like
Hmm.
stirring it. She's like, "Excellent for the pores," like or something like that.
That thing is bubbling. Yeah,
It
it's
is
got like
bubbling.
chunks. It's got
Yeah.
the bubbles. It's got the vapors.
Oh
Yep.
yeah. Yep.
So this concoction in the books is poured over the lilac stumps in Sally's yard in New York.
Yeah. And in the movie, it's poured onto the grave under the rose vines in the garden on Magnolia Street.
Yeah. So a bit on Magnolia Street. I think we talked a little last episode, and I think we have more to discuss. But in the books, the Bluestone Path is mentioned. Excuse me. I have a LaCroix and a beer. I am
Oh
gassy.
my goodness. You're bubbly.
I am a bubbly girl. In the books, the Bluestone Path is mentioned, and it says so after they pour their cauldron onto Jimmy's grave, the aunts decide that they are going to really seal this sucker up. So they carry along, this is from the book, they carry along 20 blue stones inside their large suitcase, stones Maria Owens had brought to the house on Magnolia Street more than 200 years ago. Stones such as these form the path of the aunt's garden. And it also says that it would be enough stones to fashion a small patio in the spot where the lilacs once grew.
And in the movie, there's absolutely no mention of the Bluestone Path or their significance, but we do actually see the Bluestone Path in the movie. And then Jimmy's death resolution, right?
Yeah, at the very end, we have some kind of solace in knowing that. So the girls think that they are in deep trouble because Jillian has convinced herself that she has killed him. So in the end, the girls get a letter from Gary saying that Jimmy's death, they're cleared of Jimmy's death because he had planted Jimmy's ring on a random unidentified person in the desert who was burned beyond recognition. And then he sends a case clearance letter to Sally stating that she's off the hook.
Yeah. So then in the movie, Gary doesn't plant the ring on anyone. He sends the ring back to Sally in the case clearance letter, which Jillian then throws in the fire of brambles that Sally is burning near Jamie's grave. The cause of death in the letter was deemed by Officer Hallett as simply accidental, and no other details are explained.
Awesome. So something I think I left out was before when I was saying like Jillian thinks this is why I was getting confused. When Jillian thinks she killed him, there's a little part in the book that says the aunts were like, no, this was not even enough belladonna to kill like a shrew or something
Oh,
small. She was like, it would have taken a lot more to kill this 6-foot man. Like you didn't have any part of this. Like his heart
I
just gave out.
completely missed that.
Yeah, I forgot to add it in, but
Okay,
that
so
yeah,
then
she's off the
they
hook.
don't kill him then. They don't kill him, or she
I
doesn't kill
guess
him.
not. In the book, no, she's off the hook, but she thinks she does throughout the whole story until the aunts come at the very
Well,
end.
what if the aunts are mistaken? What if the aunts
You're questioning the aunts?
well, okay, I'm a Sagittarius. I have to look into every friggin' aspect of
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
What's the meaning of life? But
42.
what if the aunts just are what if they're just referring to the little bit that Jillian gave him right before his death? They don't know that Jillian
Had been giving it to him over time, yeah.
consistently been giving him this over time, and maybe she was right. Maybe it did accumulate in his bloodstream. Like, I don't know how if belladonna works like that, but if it does, then yeah, she could have definitely have been the source
Culprit.
of the culprit. Yes.
That's a good theory.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's a really good
What do you guys think?
point.
Let us know in our voice messages.
Yeah, really. Should we take a poll? Should we do a poll on
Yeah,
this?
I want to
Did
know
she
what
kill
you
him in
guys
the
think.
books? Yeah, any book readers out there.
All right, so we're coming to the end of the story here. So we have a couple more little, I guess, topics to cover, and then we'll take another quick break.
Yeah, one of those things is Jillian's relationship. What does Sally say? She is really bad with men. Or what did she say?
Yeah, something to that extent.
Oh, I want to know that line now. So, this story contains, in the book at least, quite a few additional characters. One of those characters is Ben Fry, who over time ends up courting, falling in love with, trying to get with Jillian. They end up together in the end of the book, and she agrees to marry him.
Was Ben Fry Kylie's teacher? Like, wasn't he like a
He
science
was.
teacher?
He is.
And
Yeah,
didn't
he's the
Kylie have
science
like a
teacher.
thing for him?
She had a crush on him real good.
She had a crush on him, and Julie, like her little slutty slut aunt came along, was like, "Nope, he's mine." I mean,
Yeah,
like,
because
what is Kylie gonna do? She's just a kid. Like,
I was gonna say, like,
teach her.
hey, we're the same age, and Jillian didn't even really want him. She was like, no, like you're gonna
Yeah.
end up dead. I don't know.
Yeah, that's right.
Yep.
So yeah, in the movie, there is no Ben Fry character. By the end of the book, she agrees to marry Ben Fry. I don't remember if they actually got married then and there. Do you remember?
I think
Did they elope?
it
or
was
something?
like, I think it was something, the entry was like that following Saturday they got married.
Okay.
Something small.
So Julie is married by the end of the book, but in the movie, at the end of the movie, she's more grounded and accepting of her roots and who she is, and she's single for the very first time since she pretty much left Magnolia Street, and she's perfectly happy with that. And she planted her roots back on Magnolia Street. And that could be symbolized. I just thought of this while I was writing these notes. I think that could be symbolized by her holding the beets or that root. She has like some kind of root vegetable.
It
at
looks
the
like
end.
beets, yeah, or
Yeah.
turnips or something.
Some kind of root vegetable. So that to me symbolizes like she's planting her roots. She's going back to her roots. She's happy with who she is. She's happy being single. She don't need no mans to give her some half-assed meaning of love. Like she's happy, which is Jilly,
yeah,
and that's cool. I love that.
I think as far like I love the book. I don't get me wrong, but I don't think every character needs a happy ending, and I really loved that they put her happy with herself in the film.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And then Sally's relationship.
Yeah, in both of them, she ends up with Gary. So in the book, Sally thinks that the aunts have spelled Gary into coming back because I think she notices the heart of a dove on a platter. However, it's her homegirl. It's Jillian who comes in for the swing batter, like no, not a miss, but a home run. She calls up our boy Gary and is like, "Dude, what are you doing?" And he ends up heeding the call and coming to Magnolia Street.
I also wanted to mention the fried chicken. Do you remember the fried chicken?
In the movie?
No, in the book. In the book. It's not in the finale. It's in the scene where Sally confesses to Gary that they offed Jimmy.
No. Oh, and they're in the car and it's like,
they're in the car,
yeah, that's
it's
gross.
pouring rain.
Gross.
And remember when I reread this, like back when we were writing the songs, and I remember messaging you, and I was like, yeah, but like, why did he leave a whole bucket of fried chicken out in the rain? That's such a waste of chicken. Like,
I know, he put it outside while they were talking. Why wouldn't you just stick it in the back seat?
I was like, what the hell, you idiot. Like, give me that chicken. I want it. But yeah, in the movie, Sally releases a leaf, possibly a sign of her releasing her grief, but it's also a call to Gary, who later shows up in the garden to, I guess, seal the deal and be like, I want to be with you. I think we're meant for each other. Yeah.
So he shows up in the end on Magnolia Street, which leads us to the grand finale. The grand finale.
Yeah, the best part of the movie.
Yes, it is. There's unfortunately no jumping off the roof on Hallows Eve in the story.
I hate that scene is so short. I wish it
it's
were
very
longer.
short.
I love the Halloween scene.
Yeah, that house is beautifully lit. Like it's a blue background. You see the silhouettes of the trees and the house is glowing. It's all orange. It's lit from floor to attic. It's stunning.
Was it you that I was talking to? We both of us like came across that picture of them on the roof, but it was like obviously a scene from behind the scenes, and you could see like the sky like looked like a sound stage. Like the whole roof looked like a sound stage. Right?
It was definitely a set photo, which is great.
We'll have to post that picture somewhere.
Let's do it. In the end, the book, it's less cinematic. They end up going on a search for. So I think seeing the dove's heart in the tray kind of reminded them of the drugstore girl from the beginning of the story. And at the very end, it's not till the very end that we learn her name is Irene. So the girls are like intrigued. They go looking for the drugstore girl and they get to the drug shop and the owner is like, "Oh, you mean Irene? Oh, she moved to Florida after her husband died." So she is living it up in like St. Augustine, just being her. I wonder if she's still mute or after he died, if that
Yeah, did she get her
broke it.
voice back?
Yeah, I don't
Did him
know. We got to
dying
ask
break the
Alice
spell?
Hoffman. Poor girl.
Yeah. Did
But
her
hey,
dying
man.
I'm wondering.
Hey. As mentioned before, there were quite a few additional characters, and some of the ones in the book were a young boy named Gideon Barnes, and he is Kylie's bestie. He's very smart. He kind of dresses like a punk. He has a shaved head. He probably wears Docs. He just doesn't like authority. We have Ben Fry, who we mentioned. He is the science teacher at the girls' school and Jillian's love interest. We have the shop girl, Irene. We have Mr. Hallowell. He is the school principal. And we also have Sonny, who is Gary's grandfather.
So then characters from the film are the Verbena employees, which are Linda Bennett as Clara and Margot Martindale as Chloe Webb. And then we have the phone tree day participants, which Margot and Linda are included in that little phone tree day, which ends up being the coven at the end, as well as Annabella Price as the lovelorn lady, which we see in the intro with the on spell, and then also Martha Gaiman as Patty, Mary Gross as Debbie, and Cordelia Richards as Nan, and then also Lucinda Jenny as Sarah, the woman who at the end says, "I always wanted to see inside your house ever since I was a little girl." And she's the leader of the phone tree. It's just a cool thing to see them all come together at the end in support of Sally, even after all of those years of being ostracized by them.
Yeah.
Cool.
So the Verbena employees were part of the phone tree. Why weren't
Yeah.
they there at that meeting that day?
They weren't?
Guys, remember like Sally like slams down her little planner and her book and she storms out and she's like, Jillian's like, "Did I do something wrong?"
That's
And
right.
she's
That's
like,
right.
"Phone tree day." And they're not
Oh,
in
that's
that
right.
classroom.
Okay, so then at the end, they were just called as backup as her friends who worked in her shop. They
Got it.
weren't part of the phone tree then, I guess not.
Got it.
Yeah, that makes more sense.
All right.
I just looped them into the phone tree because they were also part of that end scene.
Yes.
So that's where I was going with that. But yeah, they were
Got
not
it.
part of the phone tree. They just worked at Sally's apothecary shop, and that's how they were looped into the whole fiasco at the end. Just extra
Got
support.
So Margot Martindale is the woman I was thinking of who is in
Let's clean house.
everything. Yeah. So a little trivia here. Mary Gross, who plays Debbie, also plays Mrs. Quick in Sabrina the Teenage Witch. She is one of their teachers. She looks like her young picture I'm looking at on IMDb looks like Julie Andrews with her little short haircut.
Oh, I love
Good on
Julie
her.
Andrews.
Good on
That's
her. I know.
cute.
What's that TikTok thing? Don't make any sudden trips. Don't make unnecessary journeys. We have to protect her. All right, guys, you made it this far. We have our final quote that is a little differing. So at the very end of the book, it is the last line in the book and the last line in the movie, I think. We have always throw spilt salt over your left shoulder, keep rosemary by your garden gate, add pepper to your mashed potatoes, plant roses and lavender for luck, fall in love whenever you can.
Yeah, and the movie is basically the same except for the add pepper to your mashed potatoes line, right? Always
And the
throw-
roses.
And oh, yeah. Okay. So yeah, the movie is always throw spilled salt over your left shoulder, keep rosemary by your garden gate, plant lavender for luck, and fall in love whenever you can. So they condensed it a little bit for the movie. Yeah.
Alan Silvestri.
Alan
everybody.
Silvestri, good old Alan.
So you guys if you're hanging in there, you're doing a great job. We have a little more to come. We have some more goodies for you. We're going to take a quick break though. How does that sound?
I think that sounds spectacular.
All right, we'll be right back.
All right. Tongue pop. Hey, we're the Stinas, and you're listening to Magnolia Street Podcast. Dokes. So we are back, and if you guys made it this far, we really commend you. This is a big one.
Yes.
We're sorry for dumping all this information on you at once, but hey.
I think this one was super important because there are fans of both book and movie, and they do differ.
Right.
So some of the things that the book has that the movie doesn't have that I would have really love to see, and I know it's for time constraints and like the flow of the movie that is not really necessary. But in the book, we get to see Kylie, who is the younger daughter, and a bit of her relationships with the other characters. So in the book, Kylie has a friendship with a boy named Gideon. And it's so sweet and like pure and just like before, I guess, before stuff gets cloudy of like, I like you, you like me kind of stuff. They play soccer, they play chess, they're very competitive with each other, they respect each other, they think each other are very smart. And you see them kind of have a bit of a falling out, which I know, you know, lots of friendships have, and it shows her coming to terms and kind of figuring out a way to reconcile with him, which I think is super sweet. And we don't see a lot of male female relationships in stories that don't end in a romance. So I'm not saying later on down the line within Alice Hoffman's world that that doesn't happen, possible spoiler, but in this book, like they're just so sweet to each other, and it's nice having that person to confide in. So I would love to see that. I would have loved to see a bit more of Kylie and Antonia's relationship in the movie, because in the books they start out really at odds and butting heads, and poor Kylie is always teased by Antonia, and it takes this big shift occurrence for their relationship to change. The coming of age story involved in Kylie's timeline also is like a big thing. There's a whole 13th birthday party, and Jillian kind of takes her under her wing, and they give her a makeover, you know, in the bathroom during this party, which kind of catalyst is it catapults the her seeing auras, and her being feeling like I am this beautiful person. I am intricate and unique, and I'm going to own that. So this causes a huge disruption. But again, timeline and not being really part of the magical story of Sally and Jillian. So I
Yeah.
get it, but it was just something I would have liked to see. Were there any
Yeah.
things that you wanted to see?
I could see why they wouldn't make that a, I guess, a plot or a focal point in the film. I could see why they wanted to keep the kids kind of young throughout the entirety of the movie, because they had these like blockbuster stars, Sandra Bullock and
Hmm.
Nicole Kidman, and they probably didn't want to upstage those romance plot points with additional plot points or of, you know, the younger kids. So I can kind of see why they would have left that out. And let's see what else. And also, yeah, Kylie's relationship with Gideon couldn't have happened unless she was older, which that's probably also why they left that out. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know if there were anything, if there was anything else that I would have necessarily liked to see in the movie. I agree that they probably cut lot out for time constraints and to just have the movie flow a lot better for Hollywood's sake.
Hmm.
But I think I would have liked to see more of the cats.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
I would have
yeah.
liked to see more of the cats and their relationship with, like, the familiar relationship with that they have with the cat,
Okay.
because they do have the one cat in the film. So I would have liked to see, you know, that relationship a little more, as opposed to it just being a little kind of like a flash here and there on the screen.
Hmm.
Like they alluded to the cat, and they kind of
Hmm.
paid homage to the cat since the cat's part of the books, but they didn't really. That's really all it was. Yeah, there's so much detail in the book that it's kind of hard to pinpoint what I would have liked to see, or
Absolutely.
yeah.
Awesome. So, as mentioned, I had done something like a watered down version of this topic a long time ago on a YouTube video, and we're going to link that video. But there were some comments that really struck a chord that were really pertinent. So we didn't ask permission, but we're gonna list these folks and what they said.
Yeah. So, one of the comments is from Karen Walker's Gin Glass, by
Oh
the
my
way.
gosh,
I
I'm just
freaking
getting
love that
that.
name. I
Just
love that
getting that.
name.
Karen Walker.
So she says, I've seen the movie already and I'm halfway through the audiobook right now. One thing that I appreciate about the book is how we are able to see Sally transform from deeply depressed and non functioning into a strong willed, independent rock for her girls. She makes tough choices and sticks to them out of love for her children, and I find this very inspirational. And I have to agree
Oh,
with that. Yeah.
yeah.
Police. Sally.
It's loud in my mouth.
It's loud in my mouth. Um, Sally was able to pull herself out of a very dark place, and
Mhm.
it takes a very she's right, it takes a very strong-willed person to do that, and she's just a badass. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then Belladonna Bookworks says, I love that name too.
I do.
One of the things I wanted to point out is that Gary says that the date is March 28th, I think 1998, when he starts the tape recorder to Sally's confessional in the hotel. So I think the timeline of the movie is early spring. He also notes that it's too early for roses when he meets her at the house when she's cutting down the roses. I think it's an error on the movie maker's part to say they're going to a solstice celebration, since she would have been celebrating the spring equinox, which would have been about March 21st and would have lined
Yeah.
up nicely with the timeline. I have to
Yeah.
agree with that. Yeah, the
Good.
person who wrote this should have done more research on the wheel of the year. Not Another Theater Trash Channel says, the facet I found the most interesting, aside from hearing more about Kylie and Antonia, was the fact that they detailed Jillian's trauma from her relationship with Jimmy and how it affects her relationship with Ben, and kind of makes her resistant to him at first and makes her feel like she doesn't deserve someone as good as him. Like in the scene where they finally decide to have sex, she keeps expecting him to be rough and forceful with her because that's how Jimmy was. That's a really
Yeah.
good point.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, past trauma,
That's a really
baby.
good point. And yeah, the whole trauma aspect, they really didn't dive too much into Jillian's trauma
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
about that at all. But I'm
Mm-mm.
guessing that Jimmy, I mean not Jimmy, I'm guessing that Jillian's acceptance towards abusive relationships definitely has a lot to do with her past traumas as a child. I'm definitely seeing like child trauma and how she's acting in her present day in the movie, but we don't really see how the Jimmy trauma would play out in her then future life from that point on. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
we could. That is such a like popcorn psychology
It
like
is.
thing.
It
It's
is.
like a deep dive, but definitely like having been orphaned at such a young age, having grown up in a household where the aunts are taking care of their basic fundamental needs, but clothing them, housing them, feeding them, and but that's it. Like she's having to like figure out what gets her the farthest,
Mm-hmm.
and what keeps her safe.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that's a really great insight into that. Not Another Theater Trash Channel.
Love that name. I
Yes,
love that name. Okay, and then our last comment that we're gonna kind of spotlight here. I think you got a lot more comments than this, right? But
there were there. Yeah, please, we're gonna link the video, and there are other
okay,
comments, but these had to really deal with other ideas or theories about
okay.
the storyline.
All right. So the last one is from Mr. Emerald the Green. Is that a reference to a book, Mr. Emerald the Green, or is that just like some random
I don't
name? I don't
know.
know. I
Yeah, I don't
love it
know.
though. I love it. All right, so Mr. Emerald the Green says one of which was that it would have been impossible for Jillian to drive from Tucson to New England overnight. So I wanted to see if it specifically said where she starts from, then driving to Massachusetts. The other thing I found strange about this part in the story in the film is the girls and the aunts don't even seem to know Jillian has come for a visit. It just struck me as strange that Jillian would drive all that way, stay the night, and drive all the way back.
Yeah.
That doesn't strike me as strange because Jillian, like we've talked about when we were writing the song about her, she's like a fart in the wind. Like
She
she's
does what
there
she
and then
wants.
she does what she wants. She's there and she's not. And honestly, she only wants to be seen by who she wants to be seen by.
She didn't want to
So
see the aunts. She
she
wasn't there for that.
doesn't.
She was there to pull Sally out
Yeah,
of her
she was there for her
hole.
sister, and that's all she was there for. And then she was gone the next day because
Yep.
she wasn't there to have a good time.
She wasn't.
She was there
Yeah.
to do her sisterly job, and that's it. So
Yeah.
I think that makes perfect sense that she wouldn't stay the night or say hi to the aunts or the girls because
Yeah.
if from the movie we learn that when Jilly comes back officially and she sees the aunts again for the first time, that's also the first time she's even seeing her nieces.
Exactly. And I think too, like we see in the scene before she does the driving, she is dosing Jimmy. In her mind, she might be like, okay, I only have this amount of time to be gone. So I
Mm-hmm.
need to get there and get back before
Yeah,
he starts getting agitated or,
right.
being violent again.
Definitely.
So that was her chance. She took it and she had to get back.
Yeah, but definitely they are definitely right about the part. You cannot drive from Tucson to New England in
No,
one night.
no, yeah, but have maybe with Joni Mitchell you can.
Did we miss anything?
Yeah, please let us know if we missed anything. I think in my opinion, if the story was made today, I did a little bit of thinking because I wanted to ask you this earlier, but now it's like under I don't know any actresses off the top of my head, but I was like, okay, if I write it down, I'll think about it a little more. So if this was made today, who would be cast as? I'm just gonna do Sally, Jillian, and the aunts because I had Maria, the daughters, Gary, Jimmy.
Mhm.
But I think it would be so amazing if Evan Rachel Wood played Jillian
Oh
and Camilla Bell
yeah.
played Sally. Wouldn't that be
Oh yeah.
sweet?
That would be
Um,
awesome.
like, and as for the aunts, I was trying to look up like famous actresses over
Yeah.
30, and um one
But what if we just had Sandra Bullock and Nicole Kidman play the aunt? It
oh my God.
like
Okay,
a
yes.
domino
Yes,
effect.
yes, yes. Yes, yes, yes.
How
I'm there.
awesome would that be?
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Oh
Yeah.
man. Please don't ever remake this film. Nobody remake this film. You can make adaptations
Well,
of the other stories.
there's been a few attempted at remakes which have all fallen through thus far. So maybe it's
Mm-hmm.
not meant to be touched. Maybe it's meant to be a
Mm-mm.
passage in time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Alice Hoffman, she did her last 3 books in the series, so I think we should just leave it at that and call it a
Yeah,
day.
be done. I was all for them making that HBO Max series of
Yeah,
Rules of Magic, but
I was just really scared that they were gonna fuck something up. I don't know.
I don't know. Well, they had the casting and everything, so I don't
Yeah,
really know what happened. COVID happened, but
yeah,
please, yeah, sound off and let us know if we did miss anything. We want to know. We want to know so we can add it to our notes for
yes.
for you guys.
Send us those voice messages. You can get our link where you can send us those voice messages in the description and the show notes down below.
Mm-hmm.
And also via our Koji link in our bio in our Instagram page, which is at Magnolia Street Podcast on Instagram. And you can also send us any comments or questions or anything else. If we missed anything, you can also catch us outside. How about that?
How about that?
You can also send us an email at magnoliastreetpodcast@gmail.com.
There are 4 tiers, a $1, $3, $5, and $8, and they all have some really awesome goodies that we can't wait to share with you guys. We're just like, please, somebody sign up
Yeah.
so we can send you all these goodies. But
Yeah.
if you click on the Patreon link, it's all listed out there to read in their descriptions.
Yeah. And the $1 you get to vote on what our upcoming topics will be. So that's a lot of
Yes.
fun. And then the $3, I won't go further than this, but the $3 you actually get our show notes. So if you have any questions or want to revert back to anything that we covered on this hella long episode
Yes.
of the show, then you can find the show notes for this entire episode on our $3 tier. Our Patreon link is actually patreon.com/Magnolia Street Podcast.
Awesome. All of the socials, all of the sources, all of the disclaimer, everything is in the description, like the show description at the bottom.
Yeah, so we hope you guys enjoyed this long episode of Magnolia Street Podcast. I'm Justina.
I'm Kristina, and we'll see you next time.
At that house down the street. At that house on Magnolia Street. Would you go down to Magnolia Street where the wisteria grow out? And the house of magic and mystery. So would you go down to Magnolia Street?
In my ear.
It's so loud in my mouth.
It's so loud in my mouth.
So I'm going to try to hold the phone out here and see if that helps.
Okay.
I hope it doesn't sound like shit. That sounds.
I'm gonna
It sounds so loud in my mouth.
I'm gonna randomly think about that like throughout this recording and just like start cracking up.
Can we slide that in at the end of the episode?
It's so loud in my mouth. Oh my god. I don't know why I said that.